All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. And welcome to Fearless, a production of Fuel, myfuel.io. Check out the website if you haven't already. It's one of the fastest growing e-learning platforms on the planet. And we've even got now some of the instructors AI bots. If you haven't checked out our AI bots, my bot happens to be downloaded with 40 years of my body of work, the 20 books I've written, hundreds of articles, hundreds of interviews, all loaded into this AI bot, accessible 24/7. So you can interact with me at any time from anywhere in the world and get real time answers. And I'll just say this, I've had conversations with my bot and it has better recall than I do. So take advantage of that. You can also take advantage of other instructors' bots. We've got Hall of Fame speakers on Fuel. We've got best-selling, award-winning authors, TEDx, a million plus viewer talkers, speakers, things like that. So, and share it. Share this with your employees. Share it with your family. Fuel is just an incredible. It's like the new Netflix, if you will, of performance learning, where you're applying it immediately, unlike memory learning. So when you're not learning you're using memory, you're using mastery. And today's guest is a change master, amazing person, Deborah Poneman. And I met Deborah about 16 years ago at a conference out in Los Angeles. And I've followed her work ever since. She's coached people, hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, 150 plus countries. She's a best-selling author. She's been very involved with the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And she's the founder and CEO of Yes to Success. And I'm going to ask Deborah a lot actually, about Yes to Success. She's also got an exciting retreat, 5-day retreat coming up in the Bahamas that really integrates inner peace and fulfillment and in your true meaning and purpose in life with whatever it is you're doing. It's simply phenomenal. And so I've been practicing essentially what Deborah's been teaching for most of my career to just absolutely results, manifestations beyond my dreams. So with that, I want to welcome Deborah. She's dialing in today from Los Angeles, so it's early for her. But Deborah, welcome, and say a few words about your amazing your history. I know you got started in Fairfield, Iowa, and said, you know what, in the whole meditation kind of genre or field, I got to make some money. I got it. So you went to LA and you got into investments and things like that, and then whammo, you have the awake method. You can talk a little bit about the awake method as well as Yes to Success. So welcome and share a little bit more about that, how you got started.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you for inviting me. It is so good to see you. It's been a long time. 20 books? I mean, who writes 20 books? That is absolutely amazing. And I know you told me the story about how you didn't want to write any more books, but there was a presence that just in a room one morning after your dad died, write this book. But it's interesting because how many people have a message, write this book, and they don't do it. And usually they don't do it out of fear because their fear is, oh, maybe it won't be a bestseller or it won't be as popular as my friend's book. And a lot of the reasons why we stop ourselves from doing things like that is because we're worried what other people are going to think. And the truth is they're not even thinking about you. They're too busy thinking about themselves. Oh, what if I fail? No. So I think I'm going to take an inspiration from you right off the bat that I'm going to get my next book going. So thank you already this morning. You have moved my life ahead, and I don't make commitments that I don't keep. But my journey began, as you said, I was in college and I learned to meditate, and it was so life-changing for me that I quit school and I went to Europe for 5 months to become a meditation teacher. And then for the entire decade of the 70s, I taught meditation full-time. I was in Fairfield, Iowa. I was the director of admissions at Maharishi International University. And it was a great time in my life. But then in 1979, although I loved teaching meditation, it was a nonprofit. I realized that woman does not live by mantra alone. And I needed things like maybe health insurance or car insurance, or a car to insure would have been nice. So I thought, how do people make a lot of money fast? I thought, It's not by teaching meditation and where. And I came up with the obvious. People make a lot of money in LA. I mean, I could look out the window. I could say, yeah, they do. They
Yeah.
sell, right? And they
Yeah.
sell investments. I mean, I watched the Beverly Hillbillies, I saw that everybody in LA was rich, right? Some people might not know what we're talking about, but so I left my meditation community and I started selling investments. I was a complete failure. But a lot of people say that was fearless, that I leave my meditation community for the unknown to sell investments. But I never thought about it. I just followed the breadcrumbs to what I needed to do, and I needed to make some money. So I started selling investments. I was a complete failure because, and when I say failure, I mean I sold zero investments except to my father, who felt sorry for me. But that expression, we make plans and God laughs. Well, God had a big laugh that I thought I was going to go to LA to make money because now I was not only broke meditation teacher, I was a beyond broke investment salesperson because at least in Fairfield I had a stipend I could go to the dining hall and eat. And besides that, I actually was married at the time and brought my husband with me, and it was an unhappy marriage. I had a major we call them health opportunity, but it was major. And I remember being despondent and going to the ocean one day and sitting on a park bench and weeping. It was a classic dark night of the soul. And like you, I had a voice come to me and said, because I thought, why was I in this terrible situation where I was broke and sick and hated what did? And the voice said, and this too shall pass. And it was definitely a voice. And this too
Yeah.
shall pass. And you know what? It always does. You always come out on the other side. And I just thanked the voice and I calmed down. And the next day I was invited to a seminar where I heard the formula for ending struggle and creating a successful life. It was at the Learning Annex. Remember the Learning Annex in LA?
Yeah.
It was where
Yeah.
everybody got their start. And the guy was talking about the law of attraction. It was either the end of 79 or the beginning of 80. I mean, now the law of attraction is like a household concept, but he said that we're like tuning forks, and however we vibrate, we attract that to us. And if we are always talking about how we're broke and we'll never find our soulmate and we'll never find our ideal career and whatever, I don't even know what people say, but if that's how you vibrate, that's what you're going to attract. And I just thought this is the most powerful information that people need. And I started studying. I realized the great masters all said the same thing, Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Florence Scovel Shinn. So I started
Yeah.
a company, and that was 46 years ago.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah, my company turns 38 this year, and I have done a number of shows on the law of attraction and just karmic law. What goes around comes around. What you put out comes back. And I've often used David Hawkins' work, the map of consciousness, where he calibrated those frequencies all the way from the lowest at shame on up through joy and peace, inner peace, and enlightenment. And when you can learn to match those frequencies, you can't help to quote Einstein. Einstein said everything is energy. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get it. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. Albert Einstein. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. This is exactly what you're talking about, Deborah. And by learning that at such an early age, in manifesting the life you have. And the other thing I think is so important about karmic law and the law of attraction is that it's got to be somewhat selfless. If it's selfish, if I'm giving to get, um, that's not what it's really all about. It's got to be, and you use the word authentic a lot. It's got to be authentic, and we've got to be giving for the benefit of others, the world, not in some selfish way. So, a comment a little bit on that, and then the yes to success phenomena that you've created and the people all over the world that you've helped with that.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that because I was recently interviewed for a summit on love, and people think that love is, well, they wait until they have an assurance that they will be loved back, right?
Mhm.
They don't want to appreciate somebody unless they're assured that they're going to be appreciated for their appreciation. But love isn't tit for tat. Love is love for its own sake. And I remember Gerald Jampolsky, also in the 70s, he wrote the book, Love is Letting Go of Fear. And people are just so afraid to love because their greatest fear, of course, is that they're unlovable. And if they love, they won't be loved back. But I think that if we can stop keeping score and if we could stop looking for assurances and just be love, that is what the world needs now. We don't need to hold back, and also the other thing we do is the ego is so brilliant because the ego tries to protect us from what's happened to us in the past where we were rejected, where we were made to feel less than, where we were not the winner that we hoped to be. So what we do is we reject. The ego helps us in order to protect ourselves from rejection. But I'll tell you something. So, you like somebody, but you don't think they're going to like you back. So you think, well, they're a jerk anyway. Did you see that Instagram post? They're clueless, right? And
Yeah.
so, but if we could only just be love and give love for its own sake, not because we want something in return and not because we, there's an end game. If we could just that's all the planet needs right now. It's kinda like in your business. Like, people don't wanna start writing their book until they could somehow be assured that it's gonna be a bestseller. Ain't gonna happen. You have to do the work in order for it to become a bestseller. But what we want is assurances. There are no assurances on planet Earth. So back to love. Just give
Yeah.
love because that's the end game in itself.
Yeah, well, one of the things, I teach and write about is the difference between the ego mindset and the spirit mindset, if you want to call it that. And again, back to David Hawkins' map of consciousness, the lower eight frequencies from shame up through guilt and fear and lust or desire, which is the ego's identification with love, up through anger and pride. Pride's the highest of the ego frequencies because it's still dualistic. So the ego thinks in turn it's fear based. Number one, it's the root cause of fear, and it's uh, never happy enough. It's everything's temporary. So joy is temporary. You need more. You need more, right? And when you cross that next frequency, the ninth frequency, courage, I call it the bridge of courage into the spiritual realm, and you're letting go of ego. It's a tool that you use as a human, but it's not you. So we're tricked because a lot of times the mind is controlling us rather than our higher self, capital S, controlling the mind. So the mind is telling us to be afraid. You should be afraid of this. You should, right? You've heard that 100 times, thousands of times. When we get beyond that, we get into unconditional love, which is exactly what you're talking about. The ego's idea of love is, well, I fell in love and then I fell out of love, or I love this, but I hate that. It's all duality, right? Where unconditional love is precisely what you're talking about. It's loving for no reason, to quote Marcy's one of her books, wasn't it? Love for no reason. And it's just giving and giving and giving. And again, with law of attraction, the more you give, the more you receive to give. And I describe a person's purpose in life as pretty simple. It's to give away what you've been given. And so we all have been given blessed with talents, with certain characteristics. And when we learn to give those away, how do we feel? We feel amazing, right? And by giving those away, we attract more in. And you've talked about this too, living in LA and the Beverly Hills. I'm in Palm Beach, Florida. There's billionaires up and down the ocean here, and everything. People who look at that with a negative perspective are actually blocking their own abundance, their own manifestation of abundance, because they've got that. It's like having a force field, just this resistance. Talk a little bit about that, because I know you've figured out. The other thing I want to ask you too is you've got this conference coming up, this retreat in the Bahamas later in May. And you say it's beyond the law of attraction, aligning with natural law. I want to hear you talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah. Well, one thing I would just want to say, because you mentioned Marcy Shimoff, I just want to tell you that one of the things that I always teach is about treating everybody as the most important person in the world if you want to get ahead in life. Because usually, what happens is that you're at some maybe social event or business event, and you're talking to somebody and pouring your heart out to them, and they're like looking around the room, to see if there's somebody more important to talk to. Has that ever happened to you? Anybody?
Yep.
Right? And, I remember when I gave one of my very first Yes to Success seminars back in 1980, and this cute little college student came bouncing up to me saying, "I want to work for you. I want to work for you." And I gave her my full attention. I didn't think, what could this little college student do for me? And I listened to her, and she had some great ideas. And, I said, "Aren't you in college?" She said, "I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit." And I said, "All right, well, maybe you better talk to your parents first." And she ended up quitting college and working for me. And that little girl, whose name is Marcy Shimoff, she started out as my personal assistant and went on to be one of the most prolific female nonfiction authors of all time, selling over 20 million chicken soup books and Happy for No Reason and Love for No Reason. And then there's something that I talk about called relationship capital, that you build relationship capital. Again, if you give people your full attention, if you love unconditionally, not thinking about what you're going to get in return. And so I gave her a job. And then, 20 years later, when I had actually retired, that was another time people say, "You gave up your whole business?" Yeah, I did. I was teaching Yes to Success. I was teaching these principles of success all over the world. But what I taught people is to follow your heart. And if there's ever a decision to be made, very simple, basic law of attraction and success principles, move from your head to your heart, make your decisions from that place of your heart space. And when my daughter was born, my heart space said, "Give up your career." Even though I was about to have my own daytime TV talk show, my Yes to Success book was in the hands of a big New York publisher. And I gave it all up because I followed my heart. But the truth is that everybody was put on earth for a purpose. And your purpose, I mean, you said this before, you're given certain skills, you're given certain inclinations and talents. That isn't random. You're given them because you're supposed to use. And I'm not an artist. I'm not a dancer. I'm not I can't do any of those kinds of things. I have no talent in music, but some people do. You think that's random? No, it's the gift you're supposed to use. And my gift was speaking, my gift, like you, writing. And I knew that if I took time away to follow my heart, that my gifts were not going to go away and I could use them after my kids grow up. So I left the world of speaking and writing left the TV show before it was even made. And I became a full-time mom at home for 20 years. I stayed home. And one of the things about relationship capital is that the people who you give a hand up to, they remember you 10, 20 years later. And when I
Yeah.
was ready to come back actually, I wasn't even ready to come back. I still, my kids were 18 and 21. I was still reading them Harry Potter to go to sleep. No, that's not true. I wish I was, because that was my favorite job I've ever had, and I still have it. But Janet, our other friend Janet Atwood of the Passion Test, one day says to me, "Debbie, when are you going to stop pretending that your kids still need you and get back to speaking because the world needs you?" And she was right. But, to me, one standing I mean, one "I love you, mommy" is worth more than 1,000 standing ovations. But, we have to use our gifts right now in the world to make the world a better place. And I forgot what question you asked me, but I hope that that was helpful for people because, I just not only did I start out where I had left off, but much further along because the people who I, again, had given a hand up, who I had treated like the most successful people, most important people in the world. They were there waiting for me to do what they could do to get me back on track. And Janet gave me my first speaking engagement, and then Marcy invited me to found the company called Your Year of Miracles. That
Yeah.
we had $1 million launch right out of the chute because I
Yeah.
built relationship capital with those ladies.
Yeah, I'm on the I'm a member, if you will. I've signed up for the Miracle show that you do, and I've watched you and Marcy and others. Is it Lisa Gar? I think's part of that, or
Lisa
uh,
Garr, Sue
yeah,
Morter,
yeah,
Mike Dooley. But I'll tell you, speaking of fear, I just want to tell you this one thing that after about 5 years of teaching Your Year of Miracles with Marcy, and we had a blast and we loved each other. One morning, I just woke up and I realized I got to go back to teaching Yes to Success. That was what came through me. And as much as I loved teaching with Marcy, and what's so interesting about it is that it took me a long time to tell her because I was so afraid. See, my story is I was afraid of letting her down. I was afraid of disappointing her. I was afraid of disappointing my community, even though I knew I had to go back and teach Yes to Success. But first of all, if you're not scaring yourself every day, you're not thinking big enough. You know that.
yeah.
And something my friend Mary Pat Knight of Leaders Inspired said that when your comfort zone is this big, like a small circle, and and you do something outside that small circle, which is your comfort zone, and you realize it wasn't a big deal, then your comfort zone is a bigger circle. And then you do something outside, then it's bigger and it's bigger and it's bigger. And so I was afraid to tell Marcy that I wanted to leave Your Year of Miracles. And I realized it wasn't because I was afraid of hurting her. I was afraid of her reaction and that I would feel contracted myself. And that is the same reason why people don't move on in their lives. It's not so much that they don't want to hurt somebody else, but it's that they don't want to be hurt themselves. And so I had to buck up and I had to do it. But again, I had to move on because I'm a creative and I wanted to create, my own thing with the Yes to Success. And if you have a dream in your heart and you think, oh, I can't hurt my partner, I can't hurt by moving on, know that if you do what's best for yourself, it will always be what's best for everybody else and only 100% of the time. That's why I stayed in a marriage for 17 more years than I wanted to, because for 17 years, I thought I was protecting my wonderful former husband, but I was really protecting myself from the pain I would feel from hurting him. I
Mm.
finally did it. And he moved on and he found a woman who was so much better at being a wife than I am. And he is happier than he's ever been. So don't think you're protecting somebody by not moving on. They have their own karma. And when you do what's best for yourself, it will always be what's best for everyone else, but only 100% of the time.
Only 100% of the time. And again, that speaks to the law of attraction, because what you're doing is you're raising your own vibration by leaving Einstein also said the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. The field is the energy that we surround ourselves with, that we live in, the cosmic soup, if you will. And if we're in a job where the energy just drains us, we're in a relationship where the energy drains us, we're not doing anybody any good, including ourselves. So just precisely what you said, to find that courage, because the fear shows up all the time, right? To find the courage to say, you know what? I hear you, fear. I hear you, ego. This is essentially what you're doing. I hear you. So thanks for the advice. But I'm gonna I'm gonna go a different way. And it's spiritual. It's freedom. You know, when you're in spirit, you're fearless. You're when you're inspired, eh, and when your what and your why are clear, I say this, the how shows up. It's like you leave Iowa, it takes great courage. You go to LA and start a completely different career. That takes courage. But then as you navigate, I was using the metaphor as we're going through life, as long as we know what we want, where we're going, we do get off track from time to time. There are distractions, but it's like a GPS system where we reroute. But as long as we know where we're going, we'll get there. We just might have to make a few adjustments along the way. You're clearly an example of that, Deborah, where you've made adjustments, and I absolutely love how you talk about stepping away from yes to success in your career, very very successful career, to raise Deanna and Daniel, right? Aren't the name? Yep, yep, and to raise them and make that your what and your why, and then your how continues to change a little bit. I say this, when I started my company and wrote a business plan in 1988, I didn't write anything about the Fearless podcast. I never wrote anything about an AI bot. I never said anything about writing a bunch of books. In other words, the business plan, how could I possibly write these things when they didn't exist? No Google, no internet. No cell phones. I'm literally reading books like you were. I read a book about how to write a book. That's how I got started. I'm not making that up. And then I wrote the first book, and someone said, you should write an allegory, a story, to tell the story. You tell a lot of interesting stories. So I read an allegory or two, including some of Ken Blanchard's work to learn how to write an allegory. Wrote an allegory that ended up making national newspapers, and Ken Blanchard's endorsed it, so to speak. And then that carried on and on and on. And you actually endorsed my last book, Miracle Minded Manager, with a beautiful endorsement, which was an allegory about how to apply A Course in Miracles in business, which is pretty radical, right? Had to get through some fear to do that, because you're essentially putting your reputation on the line when you write something that far out there, if you will. And Zentrepreneur, you endorse that. Uh, and one thing in Zentrepreneur that I love, reminded me of it. There's a chapter called Yeah, But, the Yeah, Buts. And these are all the people that say, yeah, but, you're not ready for that. Yeah, but you should stay in school. Yeah, but, you can't make any money as an artist or a musician. Yeah, but, right? And you've certainly busted through the yeah buts to get where you are. So I did ask you about aligning with natural law beyond law of attraction. So comment on that a little bit. Tell us about this 5-day retreat, and then we'll wrap this up with a couple of final takeaways.
Well, for many, many years, I, of course, taught the law of attraction, and the law of attraction is absolutely true. We talked about it already. If you're vibrating negativity, you are going to attract negativity. It's just a law of physics. And as you said, Einstein said there's no other way. But one day, and this is the truth, it was my former husband, who's still one of my absolutely best friends. He woke up one morning, he called me, he said, I just thought of something. It's not the law of attraction. It's the attraction of law. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, there's a natural law in the universe, and it's the same law that causes an apple seed to become an apple tree laden with apples. It's the same law that breathes you. It's the same law that keeps the planets in motion. And if we could just align with natural law, if we could just attract natural law in our own lives, then our lives will be much easier than if we try to use the law of attraction by, for example, people visualize, I will be rich, I will be rich, I will be on Oprah. I remember Byron Katie. I was with Byron Katie
Yeah.
at the time, and one woman said, she was saying that she doesn't really endorse the law of attraction. And then a woman said, well, I have a friend who visualized that she was going to be on Oprah, and she was. And Byron Katie goes, honey, I have about 10,000 friends who visualized they were going to be on Oprah. And then, so I love this idea that there is this natural law, but what happens is that if we listen to that voice like you did with your book, and what year was it, 2002 or
Two,
2004?
2009, actually, 2009, 2010.
2009, after your dad went to heaven. You know, if you listen to your intuition, if you listen to that voice, that is the voice, your voice of your intuition is speaking to you. Turn right here, turn left here. And the other thing, in order to follow the natural law and to attract natural law, you really do have to follow your bliss, follow your happiness. Don't let anybody tell you not to follow your happiness. And if you have an obstruction, if you have a obstacle or a roadblock, you always say, thank you to the God of your understanding, because it is just there so that you will course correct. Because even if you're moving fast, if you're going in the wrong direction, if you have an obstacle, it's such a blessing, because you stop, you breathe, you reevaluate, and you have to course correct. So all of those obstacles are absolute gifts. And if we say thank you, I'll just tell you one thing. When you ask the creator for something, I really want this, I really want this, the creator is only going to give you one of three answers. One is, here it is. The second is, be patient. It's on its way. Just be patient. And the third is, I love you too much to give you that. There's something better on its way. So what we do in the attraction of law is we're patient, and we know that there is an intelligence in the universe that has a 36,000-foot view. And our job is to tune in to that intelligence. And in the Bahamas, on May 27th to June 1st, I'm going to be teaching a course called The Attraction of Law. And I'm going to teach people how to tune in to those laws of the universe, so that just like the apple seed becomes a tree laden with apples effortlessly, we can effortlessly have the fulfillment of all our desires. And that's what I'll be teaching, besides the fact that there's yoga every day, and there's a turquoise waters and white sand and lots of cool people and delicious vegetarian food. And I hope you all come and join me.
And for anybody who's interested in that, just go to Deborah's website, and I know you can find Deborah on LinkedIn, and Facebook and social media, and seriously, take a good look at this retreat. It's awesome. Deborah, what you're talking about in one word, I use the word flow. I read from the Tao Te Ching every morning, which translates essentially into the great way, the great current, the flow. And those 4 steps of inner peace in the book Beyond Doubt, which is now also a Fuel course, incidentally, for listeners. You can take Beyond Doubt through the Fuel platform. But the 4 steps are: let be, let go, let see, and let flow. And it's not a linear thing. It's iterative, meaning that the more you practice it in everyday situations, if you turn it this way, the more you ascend in terms of consciousness. And so let be, what does that mean? Be present, be aware, be awake, to use your awake term. Um, Stop judging and just contemplate, and be mindful of how you feel. And if you're not feeling great, go to the second step. There's something you need to let go of, right? You're holding grudges, you're feeling grief, you feel anger, you feel ego. Let it go. And when you let be and let go, you see everything different. And this is so much of what you talk about, Deborah. You see a world of perfect balance and harmony. Yeah, of course, there's things that you could focus on that are negative and wrong. But if it's outside your control, you're doing nothing but hurting your own vibration, your own self, and drawing more of that in. So when you start to see the beauty and the reverence of life, you get into flow. And this is natural law, to use your term. You're riding the wave of life, and things just appear to be effortless. Wu Wei in the ancient Chinese language, it's just effortless manifestation, it's flow. And the more you align with that, uh, wow. And the more things open up in your life. But if there's one thing, Deborah, I've heard you say now throughout this talk is between the lines, the courage that it's taken for you to leave Iowa, to go to California, to leave a career, to start a new career, a completely new career, to leave a relationship after 17 years, to step away from your career to raise your children is a top priority. This is what fearlessness and courage is all about. And so the message I hope everybody hears is that if you really want to step up in life, and get through the yeah buts and get through, the resistance or the negativity. What did you call it in one of your talks? The negativity committee or something like that.
The
Uh,
discouragement committee.
the discouragement committee. That's what it was. The discouragement committee. You find them everywhere, commiserating about this or that. And that's a vibration. And when you can learn to it's like for me, that's like listening to music that I just don't like. No matter how hard I try to like this particular kind of music, you just don't like it. I like a different frequency. And that's the same thing with people. It's the same thing with jobs. David Hawkins said this everything has a frequency: books, songs, birds, apple trees. And I love the metaphor of the apple tree because one seed can grow an apple tree, which can grow more apples with more seeds. And that's natural law, right? So, Deborah, thank you so much. How can people reach you and sign up for your retreat or just simply connect with you?
Well, the best way is just to go to my website, which is my name, deborahponeman.com. I teach so many courses. I teach a course on how to turn back the hands of time and slow, stop, and reverse aging. It's called Ageless. I teach a course called Awake on how to become more awake. I even teach an effective communications course on how to hit a home run from the stage and the Zoom stage and tell a kick butt story. And it's all there at deborahponeman.com. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I encourage everybody, please check out Deborah's website and what she's teaching. Deborah, love to get you back on Fearless sometime. And the aging in particular gets my attention. I recently had my internal age tested, um, and I'll be 66 in May. I came in at 33. So we have a lot to talk about on that because I do a lot of things that most people have never heard of, from electroceuticals to, cold plunges, infrared light, things like that, neurofeedback. And it's amazing what it can do for a person.
Well, I just have to tell you,
Uh,
I am almost 10 years older than you. So
and you look
I teach
fantastic.
people how to slow, stop, and reverse aging. You look fantastic, by the way. And yes, there are natural ways to slow, stop, and reverse the aging process without having to turn to things like pharmaceuticals that have a gazillion side effects. And yeah, John, we got to tell people about those
Yeah.
things because you could live and feel fabulous into your hundreds if you do the right things.
Right. Yeah. And so plenty to talk about. Deborah, we could talk all day. I just absolutely love what you have to share. So thank you again so much. Tune in next Friday. I'll be actually hosting the show myself next Friday on my journey through fear. And then the following week, we've got one of the top speakers in the country, Ross Bernstein. And later in the month, we've got Brian Biro, America's breakthrough speaker, and then Penny Zenker, a fuel instructor, and she goes by focusologist, helping people really draw in their focus. So some great, and if you go back to the replays, last week I had Gary Garfield, former chairman and CEO of Bridgestone Americas company, 55,000 employees, $10 billion company that he turned around and in 6 years took it from close to dying to a 500% profit increase and one of the top performing companies in the enterprise. That was Gary last week with some great tips because 2 weeks before he was invited to be CEO, he found out he had to have open heart surgery. And Gary's funny because he said, I never even took a business course. I never even ran a lemonade stand. He was their chief counsel. He was a lawyer, and he's running a huge business. Before that, I had Mark Tabbitt, a very successful wealth management expert, entrepreneur. Lost his home completely, his whole neighborhood in the Palisades fire. talked about that. Before that, Renee Godefroy, who grew up in Haiti with no water, no electricity, and at 21 made it to the States and is now a global keynote speaker on motivation. So some great past episodes. I invite you to share. We're trying through Fearless. We're trying to get word out to the world to help, as Deborah put it, just lead with more grace and confidence and inner power and sustainable authenticity, which not just a part-time temporary thing. It's just who we are. We're giving, um, what was it? Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What you say, or what you are, thunders so loudly over my head, I cannot hear what you say to the contrary." So think very carefully about who are you and what are you really capable of, and step through fear to get that done. The world needs it. So with that, thank you, everybody. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on Fearless. Deborah, we'll talk more offline. God bless you.
Thank you.